couple things can go into this, honestly. Being a rotational guy has multiple meanings. If you're telling me I'm the third guy, but it's an even split, that's one thing. If you're telling me I'm the third guy, but I'm only going to do situational pass rush, that's another thing. But when you're telling me you're the third guy, and we've seen with Melvin how his participation that Seahawks game was drastically lower than it was in his previous games, where we're talking about the amount of snaps he's playing being a lot closer to, 40, 50%, sometimes even 60%. That's where the disconnect happens.
Well, even 100 due to the injuries.
And that's where the disconnect happens. Remember when we talk about James Harrison and why he got upset? That was the big thing. We both had the same conversations with Coach Tomlin, where we knew going in, hey, you're going to rotate, but once these guys, if they're up to speed, we're not doing that anymore. And sometimes that's just how it goes. But not everybody wants to adapt to that, because some people, as soon as you tell them one thing, they just take that and that's where they're going to roll with the whole year. But you have to understand that, man, things change. Injuries happen. Guys play better. I mean, the way Alex Highsmith was playing 2 weeks ago versus Seattle, you're not taking him off the field when he's having a game like that. We know what TJ Watt is when he's playing the way he's playing. So all of those things kind of factor in. And that's why a guy like Melvin initially could be all for rotation. And as you saw, Buffalo, he was in the rotation a lot. We talk about Green Bay with the injuries and stuff. He was out there a lot. But now you come off of a game where you see 20% of the snaps. That changes your perspective a lot. And when you know the trade deadline is right around the corner, that's the other part. Hey, if I'm not happy, if I'm not going to be okay with this going forward, I need to voice this now. And that I also think is a part of the reason why it's coming out the way it's coming out right now.
And what's interesting, looking back on week 1, it was pretty much a 50-60 split between him and Highsmith. I think TJ got around 70 or 80. Yeah. It was that three-headed monster that we were hoping the edge rushers would be this season. A lot of injuries had to do with that not happening. But this was the first time, I guess, we saw TJ Watt because back in week 1, TJ was coming off of...
He was coming off of injury as well.
Like, no preseason, the pseudo holdout and stuff. So they were probably doing that more because of TJ.
Well, remember, Alex had the groin injury that popped up week 1. Yeah, because it was the surprise on the injury report. We're like, where did this happen? Where did this come from? So, yeah, man.
So maybe the Seahawks is more along the lines of what Tomlin... Steelers were hoping this was going to be, where Highsmith, I think I checked, I think he was 100%.
He was 100%. Yeah. I think that was his first
Ingram got like 20%.
Being 100% with all three of the guys being healthy at the same time. So
because up to this point, it really hasn't been that realistic where everyone's fully healthy. We get to see the actual rotation. I was thinking it was going to be more like Buffalo, but now after we see the Seahawks thing, if Highsmith's cooking and TJ Watt's TJ Watt,
it's where do you...
It's almost like the running back element. You go with the hot hand.
Well, and not even that. I think about just a year ago, 2 years ago, right? Bud and TJ. When Bud and TJ were cooking, they weren't rotating those guys anymore. Remember, that's when it stopped. Once those two guys started to elevate their play and become consistent performers week in and week out, rotation stopped. So when Alex stepped his game up the way that he did versus Seattle, rotation stops. You come out when you get tired, but other than that, it's not a defined division of labor like it might have been early on. And that is something that not every player is going to accept, especially a guy like Melvin, who we said, man, he's a high pedigree guy. Melvin has been successful in this league.
Next contract. Even.
And when you're looking statistically, him versus Alex Highsmith this season, there hasn't been a drastic difference in terms of their numbers. Both are on the same amount of tackles, both are on the same amount of sacks. So that plays into it as well. If you're Melvin and you feel like, hey, man, I could be doing more, or they're utilizing me differently, because the other element, when all three of those guys are on the field together, Alex and TJ get to stay outside and rush the passer from the edge. Melvin is the guy who has to go inside and rush against guards and centers, which is drastically different. Not saying that he can't do it, because he's still effective.
He's done it before with the Chargers.
It's just a different element. It's a lot harder to win on the inside. When you're on the inside, it's more we're trying to scheme up something, and it's worked for the defense as a whole. But if you're Melvin, that could be something that you're saying to yourself, well, hey, I don't like that role as much now if I'm only getting 20% of my snaps. And I know they're going to be those type of rushes. That's not the same. So it's a lot of variables that are playing into this decision right here.
It's almost like the James Washington conversation we were having back in August, where we're seeing these rumors that James Washington was traded. I don't want to trade him. We need him for wide receiver depth. I think he helps the team just being on the roster. And I feel the same way about Melvin Ingram. we had this conversation, a podcast or two ago, because some of these Melvin Ingram rumors were coming out, not through Ian Rappaport. I think it was just websites saying like, oh, trade deadline, Melvin Ingram could be available because Highsmith had a good game. TJ Watt is obviously our bona fide guy there. I didn't want to trade him. I still don't want to trade him, but I understand. I understand the sentiments of, hey, man, if I'm not going to get utilized a certain way, send me to a team that will.
Yeah.
But for us, it's like, bro, we kind of need the depth. Like, it's really beneficial to have you on our roster right now.
Absolutely. And that's where you get that, which is better, right? Would you rather keep a guy that might potentially be disgruntled, but you know we could circle around and really need you down the stretch? Or do you say, hey, I don't want to deal with another James Harrison type situation where this guy is potentially becoming a cancer in the locker room? We have to make a move.
And we don't know that. We haven't even heard from Melvin.
Right. But the thing was, initially, remember, we talked about this 2 days ago. There wasn't any report that Melvin was upset. There wasn't a report. And I said, as long as he's not upset with the situation, you don't move. And when the trade rumors came up, we said, if he's okay with it, you ride with it. But now that the reports are coming out through Deke Kikwabala and Rappaport that Melvin is not okay with the situation, that Melvin is upset and that he does want to be moved, that changes a lot, because now you have to think about the James Harrison situation. And for me firsthand, I remember sitting in there seeing how, not me being uncomfortable, but the other guys, the younger guys like TJ, guys like Bud, younger players who are sitting in front of him and he feels like he's just as good at that time. It made them uncomfortable. It made it awkward at times in that meeting room. So if you're Melvin, and that's the approach you take, what do you think that does for a guy like Alex, who's, like you talked about, man, this is a guy that I look up to. This is a guy that I learned from. I mean, he's been where I'm trying to go. If he's upset with you because you're the guy that's in front of him, that can make it a little awkward. That can make it a little bit tense. And that doesn't necessarily lead to the most beneficial situation from an on-field productivity perspective or standpoint.
Could you see it in one scenario going like this, though? He's just making a push because it's the trade deadline. If we don't trade him, it's like, all right, this is my scenario. I got to deal with it. I'll make the most of it.
Not necessarily, because, they still got the great equalizer. You can still release me. So if you want to trade me because you necessarily didn't find what you wanted in a trade bait, okay, cool. Well, I'm just going to act crazy, because that's what James Harrison did.
Yeah.
They tried to trade Debo. They didn't get the piece they didn't get what they thought was going to be good enough back for him. And he said, I do not care. I don't care that your team isn't getting something that you think is back for me when I'm not playing. And that's ultimately why he was like, you know what? I'm just going to keep going crazy until you just release me. So instead of them potentially getting a 7th round pick, what did they end up getting for him? 0. So that's the alternative of how I look at it, just from personal experience. We think that Melvin is just going to be quiet because the trade deadline is. If he's upset to that extent, it's not a guarantee that he will be. That's the part.
Right.
And that's what you have to be worried about, because once the deadline passed, you're not getting any compensation for him. Now you're just going to be dealing with him, and however he handles it. But that could get real dicey at the same time.
What happened to, though, leaders on the team maybe talking to him, like Cam Hayward? Or do you just think that's out the window in like today's NFL?
The only reason why that changes is because the financial element. And Melvin's not homegrown. If Melvin is a homegrown draft pick guy here, has been around, young players develop, you hear from the older guys and you respect it. It comes off differently. But Melvin's going to look at Cam and say, hey, Cam, I respect what you're saying, but you understand what this money is talking about. You understand what my situation is. And you also know at this stage of my career, I don't have multiple years to just sit around as a backup. If I'm trying to still get paid, which we said could be the case, right? You go out there and have another 10-sack year. He's 31. He can go out there and get another check. That's the part where, as a player and as a veteran player, you understand that, because that's the financial component of being a professional athlete. So even though I might be sitting here and I'm saying, Debo, hey man, bro, we got the team, man. We got to win, bro. This is messing this up. And he looks at me and said, hey, bro, I'm trying to get my money. I can't get paid more if I'm sitting on this bench. I'm trying to play. I can't play if I'm sitting on this bench. That's when you got to sit back and say, I understand. Because the team is going to do what's best for them. And we can't fault the team for that. So how are we going to turn around and fault the player for doing what's best for the player? And that's where it becomes, a little dicey, because of that business element. I mean, you don't like it, but that is the difference at the professional level versus college, versus high school, where you don't have that money. The money changes a lot in terms of guys' ability to just sit there and go with the flow. Sit there and just be quiet. For me, it was different. I didn't have an issue because at that stage of my career, I said, man, I'm completely fine with TJ and Bud being out there getting the snaps. You going to pay me my money anyways? I'm cool with it. I will do the mentorship role. I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't trying to go anywhere else. I wasn't trying to go and, hey, man, I need to go get a 10-sack season so I can go get paid again. I was fine with where I was at. Melvin, that might not be the case. For James, that wasn't the case. So everyone is different with it, but you can't fault those guys for it. It's a career decision.
Yeah. Do you want to talk moves, potential moves, trades? The Chiefs are being brought up.
Well, the thing is, the Chiefs.
I don't like.
But
that,
remember,
though.
the Chiefs, the Packers, and I think it was the Titans. But the issue is the Steelers.
Too,
the Cardinals. The Steelers. They don't want to trade him to an AFC team, which is fine. I understand that, but you also understand this: if you don't trade him and he does go the route where you end up releasing him, now you don't get to dictate where he goes.
Right.
So that's the other part. Where for Melvin does have leverage in this because he knows the clock is ticking. But at the same time, he doesn't have leverage because he's under contract.
Yeah, because if he's not showing up, what's he getting fined?
Oh, I mean, they could fine him $30K a day if they wanted to.
Right.
Or they could hit him for every meeting, contradiction. I mean, it's a lot that they could do if they wanted to go that route.
But he could show up and be a nuisance.
Right, because you remember Debo, that's all Debo did. Debo didn't miss work. Debo didn't show up late for work. Debo still was the first guy in, but all he was going to do was act a complete fool in every meeting. He was going to act disgruntled at every practice. He was going to hit you with my back hurts, so I can't go up there to practice, and you can't find him. So it's ways to work around if you want to go that route. But you also have to remember, Debo's temperament, I don't know Melvin. I've never been around him personally, so I don't know what his temperament is. With Debo, I know how Debo rock. If Debo is upset and he wants to prove a point, Debo is one of the most stubborn guys. I love Debo. That's my guy, but he's one of the most stubborn guys you're going to be around. So once he made up his mind, it was like, bro, I'm not about to talk to this dude because I already know what he's on. I'm just going to sit here and be like, Debo, man, I get it, bro. Just don't make it too uncomfortable for the young guys.
So there's two ways, either the James Washington way up to this point or the James Harrison.
Yeah.
Melvin has talked highly about the Steeler organization and everything, so who knows?
Well, and the thing is this. He hasn't went full off the reserve just yet. He just simply
we haven't even heard from him.
If they're getting it, you heard from him. That's all I'm saying. And what we talked about, right? It's multiple ways to get your message out. You think James Washington had to go up there to Coach T and say, I want to get traded? No. Agent, you be the bad guy for me. Get this out there. Hey, agent, get this to this reporter so that way it gets out there. It's multiple ways, but trust me, that doesn't get out unless that player feels that way. Personal experience. That's how it goes. That's just how it goes. So for that to come out, trust me, that's coming from him. Unless he comes out and says, no, I ain't say that. That's not the case. That's coming from him.
He could after the trade deadline. Because isn't there a case where it's just like, yeah, I'm not happy with my situation here. Let's see if we can make something happen. But if it doesn't happen, I'm just going to be chill about it.
I feel like from a fan perspective, we care about trade deadline way more than players. Players don't care about trade deadline. Players say, look, you could trade me if you want to, but you can also release me. And releasing me gives me way more freedom. Trading helps teams. Releasing helps players.
So and
that's the difference.
You think if it's legit, he doesn't come out next week and say, nah, these rumors are fake, that we'll still be hearing about Melvin Ingram unhappy, looking for release? Put it
like this. If these rumors are fake, he has a social media account, does he not? I'm pretty sure when he walked off the practice field today, when those reports came out, they could easily ask him right then and there. If he truly wanted to get the message out that he did not say that, or that he wanted to be here, or that he wasn't requesting that, it is not hard in 2021 for you to get your message out, Deke. We know this.
Let me see if he said anything on Twitter real quick. I saw nothing on Google. What's your prediction? Nothing.
I know it's nothing. If it would have been someone who said in the chat, they were like, oh, wait, he said this.
That's true. That's a good point.
It's not that hard, man. We know how this goes. Come on, babe. We know how this goes.
It's hard being misunderstood.
Yeah.
Most recent tweet.
And what was that from?
October 12th, though.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah. Chiefs made the offer. What are you willing to do here?
For me, like I said,
does it have to be NFC team for you? That's what I would prefer. But if they gave us McCole Hardman, I wouldn't mind that.
I get that, but if I'm an opposing team, I'm not giving up anything because I know he doesn't want to be there. You're not in control anymore, Steelers. I mean, let's be real about it, right? Once a guy lets you know that he doesn't want to be there, now it's either take it or leave it. I don't have to give you up anything crazy. I give you a 7th round pick. You're either going to take that or you're going to cut him in a couple of weeks if he continues this path. Not saying that he would, but say he did go the route of I want to get more disgruntled. I want to cause a stir. If he wanted to do that, the Steelers lose their leverage the longer that thing goes because he becomes more of a distraction. And you still don't have his productivity as that third rusher, correct? Because once he's disgruntled, he's disgruntled. So that's the part where if you're the Steelers, if you feel his temperament can take you there, like I said, I don't know him enough to know if he would go there. With James, I can speak on it because I was with him for 4 years. I know what he was like. The team knew what he was like. And once he did it, we all visually saw this man is fully committed to this. And that's why they ended up releasing him at the end, because it was like, yo, it's nothing we can do right now. There's not going to change anything. The trade didn't happen. It doesn't matter. He wants out. We don't know if Melvin's going to go that route. Now, the question is, are you willing to find out? Because that's the catch-22. You could sit there and find out. And if it doesn't go that route, well, then great. But if it does, just imagine the headache that causes. Just imagine the unease that room has to deal with now. So once again, it just depends on how that team, in terms of Coach T, in terms of Keith Butler, how do they feel Melvin is going to handle this moving forward if they decide to keep him? Because we know he's a valuable asset. We know.
Yeah, I don't want to
trade him. Between the injuries that these guys have been having, I understand Alex coming off of a really impressive game, but that was the first one where he put it together completely. But we noticed the NFL, it's hard to do that week in and week out. That's the difference between your TJ Watts and everyone else, right? So with that, if I'm the team, I don't want to give up Melvin. I want him to be here because I know how valuable he is. That's what we said it when the rumors came out the first time about the team even listening to trade rumors. But once again, that could also be why he's upset, because I know if I'm a player and I'm your third guy, right? And you like me, right? You tell me you love me. But now I'm hearing these reports that
maybe he's not as upset about the time. Because
think about this. It was more so, what did the report say? Teams are calling and the Steelers are listening, right? That's different. Well, if teams call for TJ Watt right now, you think they'll sit here and be like, oh, yeah, let's entertain this? Not a chance. You think of a team call right now and say, we're looking at Najee Harris. Not a chance. But, hey,
are you Melvin, giving us Derrick Henry?
Oh, you said Melvin? Oh, what you think about offering for Melvin? Now, if I'm Melvin, how you think I feel? Deke, if I'm over here like, hey, look, man, you my guy. If y'all trying to be a second chair, though, you know, I listen. Who trying to be a second chair right now? You think you can come here and talk on the mic? How would you feel? You're not going to feel appreciated, right? You could become disgruntled. You could potentially say what? Man, you know what, man? I ain't happy here no more. And now we got an issue, right? So
might take a column of these sneaker shoes out of here or something.
He's going to take it.
Might just take them down with me.
Deke said, you know what? Give me these shoes too.
End of the show. Just take out the whole thing.
It's all good. But you can see, like, that's the part, and that's the part where I think people lose that segment, because that came out first. It wasn't that Melvin.
It hasn't been brought up though at all throughout the day. I mean, it is a good point.
Right. But that's how it started, because that's why we talked about it 2 days ago, because the report said that what? Teams are calling about Melvin and the Steelers are listening. The Steelers are trying to see what they can get in return if they were to move him. If I'm a player, I don't want to hear that you trying to move me. I want to hear that, hey, the same way Coach T shot down at USC, I want you to shoot down me getting traded. I want to know that, hey, man, you got my back. You're not worried about me going out there. I'm a valuable asset. But right now, on the heels of that coming out, now you can see how a guy like Melvin could be a little upset. He could feel a little underappreciated. You talk about him playing 20% of the snaps, then you throw trade rumors on him? Yeah. And you give him a week to think about it because it's the bye week too. Like, that's a lot to deal with, man.
Yeah. We'll see how it plays out. We got a few days. We'll see how much playing time he gets in this Cleveland.
Yeah. Well, and he didn't practice. Well, he was limited in practice yesterday with the groin, because he was definitely on the list with the groin. So let's see. Where was he at today in terms of participation?
I can check. You think it's up?
Yeah, 4 o'clock. He was limited again. Yeah, limited today. Everybody else was a full participant. Ebron was limited with the hamstring. Banner, McFarland, and Chase Claypool were all full participant. Ben was a full participant, but 2 days in a row now, limited with a groin.
Damon Brown says, what the hell are we going to do about depth? That's kind of our point, and why we don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't know who's after him. We got rid of Jameer Jones.
Taco. It ain't Taco Tuesday. We got Taco.
He's on the practice squad, though, right?
Yeah, man. You know, they moved him dudes up, no problem.
He says, what do you think we can get for him? We kind of talked about this a little bit. Did Ingram really think he was going to push Highsmith out of the starting spot? 706 Augusta, Georgia in the building.
Yeah, Damon, honestly, as a player, you always think you can get the starting spot. It don't matter who's
if you just get a chance.
Yeah,
which is what we were kind of giving him.
I'm not gonna lie to you. That's always the mind. I know when I came here and it was Jason Worlds and Jarvis Jones. Now Jarvis, it was his second season, so it wasn't the full. Oh, Jarvis sucks. It wasn't all the way there just yet. But when I showed up, I remember looking at Jarvis. I remember looking at Worlds, and at the time we had Chris Carter. He was like the third guy that was gonna be the edge rusher. And I was saying to myself, I don't feel like any of these dudes are starting over me. Even though one's a first round draft pick, one was on a transitional tag, that's always the mindset as a player. And you just feel like if I get an opportunity, I'm going to prove that. And now it worked out for me. But with Melvin, of course you think the same thing. You've had double-digit sacks in this league. You've been a Pro Bowl in this league. Yes. When you talk about Alex Highsmith, who at the time hadn't had one of those breakout performances. Did he play good as a rookie? Absolutely he did, but not to the extent where we felt he was untouchable. So if you're Melvin, of course you felt like, hey man, yes, I could beat that dude out, no problem. And when you get some opportunities, especially we talked about that Bills game, man, he flew around. He looked good. We talked about at moments. Melvin has played well at moments, right? But then you come off this game where you get 20% of these snaps, changes a little bit. And then, like I said, when you hear that you're expendable because the team is listening to potential offers for you, that's where that dynamic can get a little bit different right there. But as a whole, you as a competitor, you always feel that you could be the guy. Always.
What's the trade offer then? You think it is just some bum pick, like a 6th or 7th rounder?
If I'm any team right now, put it like this, beforehand, right? When we were talking about why we wouldn't trade him, and it was like we would trade him if it was for a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It's hard to get a 2nd or 3rd round pick for Melvin right now because number one, contract, right? It's not nothing crazy, but you already know that, hey, he's a little bit older in terms of being 30, 31 years old, but also he's not a 60 plus snap starter full time right now. So, you know, when you're bringing him in, it's going to be some part of a rotation. Some of these
teams might use him that way, though.
Very true. Need him. Very true. That is a different part, right? If you feel like he's that guy, he could play 60 plus snaps, you might be willing to give up a little bit more for him. But in terms of 2nd and 3rd round picks for Melvin, when you're getting him mid season, no. If I'm a GM, that doesn't make sense to me. He's had a season ago where he was dealing with injuries. This year he still is playing well, but he's not a full-time starter out there. Even if I think he can emerge to that, he's still going to have to learn the defense. He's going to have a lot. And then when I'm seeing on the injury report now that he's dealing with a groin injury as well, limits him in practice. Now, could it be because of the trade stuff? Could it be that he's really hurt? No, honestly, the reason I say that is because
the groin's most believable at this point. Yeah, just because everyone's getting it.
And it's soft tissue. So with soft tissue, it's hard to prove yay or nay. No different if you talk about, oh, man, my back hurt. How can you prove it? Well, how can you prove it's not? You can't say it's like a bone thing because if it's bone, well, I just x-ray you. I'm good. I got the x-ray, it's going to show me. But with the groin, hey, man, he already dealt with a groin at some point this season anyways. So not saying that that's the case, but that's why I'm like, it's certain things where, yeah, that does pop up. But if you're another organization, if you're a GM, you're looking at that and you're saying, well, I don't know if I want to just give up a ton of, draft capital for that, knowing that it's a 1-year rental, knowing that I'm not even getting him for the full 17 games. I'm getting him at the midway point. So his value in terms of a trade, if I'm desperate for him, 5th, maybe you can swindle him into a 4th if you make it a package deal at best. But other than that, realistically, we're talking 6th and 7th round picks. And if you're the
maybe like Melvin a 7th for the 4th rounder.
So if you're the Steelers, you might be saying, well, I don't want to give him up for a 6th or a 7th. But the alternative is, okay, if he continues to be disgruntled and he continues to become a distraction, what are you going to get from him down the line? 0. So once again, that goes back to the team. Like, how do you feel he's going to be? And Coach Tomlin has a great understanding of players in terms of where their temperament is, and he understands how to communicate with those guys. The honesty part, right? We talk about honesty. That's why moments like this, you got to have a coach like Coach T who is honest, who has communicated with him, and who I'm probably sure right now is having a conversation with him like, yo, Melvin, let's talk this out. Let me tell you where you're at. Let me tell you what we see. Let me know where you're at. What's going on with you? Most teams don't do that. Coach T is that guy. He will definitely do that. And then from there, you find a common ground.
Then. Who knows? Yeah. In the next couple of days, maybe it could be spent into a positive then.
Yeah.
Especially with this game coming up. Because I don't think we're just going to sit. I don't think he's going to sit. Who knows, though?
Well, if he's not available because of the groin, then it doesn't matter.
Could he just say, yeah, I ain't ready to go for this game?
I don't know him like that. I do know players who would do that, though.
Right.
Or who have done that, actually. And they're just like, hey, nope, it hurts. Can't do it. And you're like, bro, I know you're fine. Nope, can't do it. It hurts. And there's nothing that team could do about that. So, like I said, I don't know him. Yeah, and that's why I don't put that on. And that's why I'm very clear when I'm speaking.
You're just laying out all
because
the different
I'm just letting you know the scenario.
But we basically laid out everything too.
Right.
There's a bunch of ways this thing could be going.
Yeah, I mean, it's one
I'd
of
be
things,
pissed
man.
about the draft picks, and we talked about this earlier as well, because that doesn't do us any good this season.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Melvin Ingram just being on the roster for depth helps us.
And not just depth, he's still a part of the rotation. Those 20% of the snaps that he played, that's still 20% that Melvin is out there and not Tuska, right? Because if we're talking the difference of those caliber players, there is a difference.
And I'm wondering, too, was it just Highsmith having the hot hand?
That does
that
play into
20
it,
go up to a 40, 45% on just a normal game day if Highsmith isn't performing like that? But if we want him to keep performing like that.
Of course you want him to perform like that, yeah.
But Ingram, I'm not going to say he doesn't, but in terms of his playing time, that could affect it.
Yeah.
I'm sure he just doesn't want something that is affected on Highsmith being hot or cold in a game. It's just 40% every game, 50% every game. But it's such a small sample size because we haven't had all these guys healthy up to this point, up until Seattle, I guess.
Yeah. Outside of Buffalo.
If you want to say week one, but I think the three-headed rotation, you could spin it in a way that was happening because of TJ's limited preseason and offseason time with us.
Absolutely.
And you're right, too. Highsmith coming in with the groin injury. You could spin it that way. And then Highsmith was out of game. TJ was out of game. Ingram was getting time. So, it's been a weird scenario for the edge rushers up to this point. See how Cleveland goes, man. I guess this isn't the news you want to be hearing. We got the Tomlin USC rumors. Now we got this.
All right. But you see the difference, though. How Coach T shut down the USC rumors. We don't have to deal with that anymore. Whereas this, if Melvin doesn't come out and shut it down, we'll deal with this.
Well, not even that. Change. If we see him play 20% in Cleveland, we'll probably be talking about this again on Monday.
Or imagine if it was less.
Right.
You be sitting here if
he's not playing.
Right. Now then, we're like, okay.
But then if he's not playing, you're just like, yeah, this is what's going to happen probably anyway. But if he does play, maybe the snaps increase a little bit, gets up to that 40 range. Yeah. Then you're like, okay, maybe they squash it a little bit. Yeah. Trade deadline goes by, and then it's a non-story. But you're right. Maybe we do need to hear from Melvin. We need to hear from someone at some point, maybe.
I would agree, man.
Well, how much do we need it if everything is
good, then you're good.
I guess you don't need it.
Right. But the one thing that they can't lie about is participation in these games.
Right, exactly.
And that's the thing. They can't. I mean, you can give us any other fluff to make us feel one way or the other, but that's the one thing that you can't change. You can't deny the fact that you're not using them right now.
Because he doesn't technically have to talk to the media, does he?
I mean, technically,
how does that work?
No, technically, y'all got to talk to me. It's in our contracts.
How does it work, though? Did the media pick out certain players that they want to hear from? Steelers say yes or no?
Actually, excuse me, no. Let me correct that.
Because obviously media would want to be hearing from Melvin Ingram right now.
Game day is different because right now they still have the COVID protocol. So they say certain players are available to talk to the media during the week. And they'll pick and choose each day.
Steelers say that to the media.
Yeah, each day they'll pick and choose who. And on game day is different because of the open locker room. So guys can essentially, you talk to whoever, it's the media scrum. But during the week, that part is different right now because of the COVID stuff.
So how would they do it in the locker room on game day? Someone would just go up to Melvin.
You just walk up to him, yeah.
Hey, do you want to get anything out there? And that's kind of.
It's not even do you want to get anything out there? It's like, Melvin, you ready, Melvin? Yep, I'm ready. Time to talk. Or he can just say, all right, I'm gonna jet out the locker room before people come in there. That's the alternative.
Just so you not even say anything to him either.
Okay. They just as long as you dip out, because you got about 10 minutes before the locker room becomes open to media. So if he wanted to, he can go in there, change real quick, and just bounce. Guys do that. You could definitely do that, and then you don't have to deal with the media. But silence does what? It just makes you more of a target. It makes people want to talk about it more because now it's, well, why didn't you want to speak? Why were you in such a hurry to get away? If it's not an issue, why wouldn't you just come up here and say that? You can't run from it. I mean, that was what we talked about with Al in this situation, right? We talked about the national anthem. Leaving the locker room instead of actually sitting there to talk to the media afterwards, it just created an even bigger storm because now we can't hear directly from you. Now we have to go to your peers, and that's how speculation gets started. That's how rumors get started, So for Melvin, if he does decide that, hey, I'm just going to keep avoiding the media, that just puts more pressure on who? Alex, right? We're nice. Not everybody's like us. We know that. The first question everybody else will be having, man, how you feel about this Melvin Ingram news? Man, what you going to do now? Man, is he upset with you? Are you upset with him? We're not doing that because that's not our style. But that's what happens going forward when a guy decides not to address it, decides not to talk about it. from personal experience, it sucks when you got to answer for somebody else. You're like, bro, be a man, talk. If you upset, say you upset. If you happy, say you happy, but say something. And that's the other part of this thing.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah. James Washington at least said something at some point. It was maybe a week after some of that stuff. He's like, I'm with the Steelers.
Yeah.
I don't think it was an extremely, extremely positive, but it was like, I'm here. I'm going to do my best, and we'll make the most of it.
We got more bills to pay.
Okay.
Sometimes you got to pay even more bills. And I like paying bills because we get to talk about my friends over at Manscaped. You know, the leaders in below the waistline grooming, because it is Halloween. Halloween is like right around the corner.
Right.
And we don't want your pumpkins to be scary looking, right?
No.
You don't want hairy jack-o'-lanterns. No. You need smooth pumpkins, okay? Smooth. And that Lawnmower 4.0 that we always talk about, especially the Performance Package 4.0. That, my friend, keeps your jack-o'-lanterns looking nice and smooth and not scary and intimidating, because we don't like that. And I'm sure your significant others don't like that as well. But you know what else I like about Manscaped?
What?
The fact that we got a promo code for them.
Oh yeah, I think everyone likes that.
I mean, how could you talk about something without having a promo code? That's kind of how I look at it. And when we talk about promo codes, it's simple. MOATS, MOATS, will get you 20% off, along with free shipping worldwide, because we know we got people listening all over the place.
That's a clutch move by Manscaped.
That is super clutch by Manscaped.
Free shipping, not only here, but worldwide.
Come on now. Manscaped keeps you right. Listen, I almost used my other Manscaped just to get this right. And I was like, you know what? No. Because I want you to see what happens when you don't Manscaped. It looks like this. And when you do Manscaped, we look nice and smooth, player. So, do yourself a favor. Do your delicate twins a favor. And use that Manscaped.